Hey everyone, I'm so excited about today's episode, but first want to let you know that this show is made possible by Fortune Builders. I also want to take a minute to invite you guys to an amazing opportunity to learn from some of the top experts in the real estate industry about how to get started in real estate or scale an existing business to the next level. Fortune Builders is hosting a one-day webinar to help you learn about real estate investing in today's market. So throughout the show, if you feel like you're ready to get started, go to FortuneBuildersShow.com to register. Again, that's FortuneBuildersShow.com to register. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you'll find a link right below the show so you can get there that way as well. And please remember that the content of this show and every show is for educational purposes only. Myself or our guests are not going to be providing any legal, financial, or professional advice. If we share specific results, they are attributed to an individual or a business, and we can't guarantee the results will happen for you, those earnings or the income will match those figures. The bottom line is there's always risk when investing in real estate. You can make a lot of money or you can lose a lot of money, and it's hard work. But that doesn't mean we can't have fun doing it. So let's get into today's episode.
From a team that has $1 billion in real estate investment experience. A show to help you learn the strategies and systems it takes to get started investing in real estate. This is the Fortune Builders Real Estate Investing Show.
All right, everyone, you got your old pal JD Asajan back in the podcast booth, ready to drop some legit, serious knowledge on you again. So expand your mind, get your pen ready, hit record, put the cat down, focus on what we're talking about, because we're going to go through another major system within our business of residential redevelopment, specifically focusing on something we've taught and trained on now for over a decade. And that's the 7 stages, yes, 7 stages of the rehab process. 7-stage rehab overview that we do every time we redevelop a property. Now, recently I talked about the 6 critical documents, and that's one piece of the 7 stages that we're going to talk about here today. I'm a little congested, but nothing that a little Dayquil won't help open up, which I've already taken. So we're going to rock and roll. But of course, we got to talk about the term of the week. You know it. You love it. You wait for it every week. You salivate thinking about what it's going to be. And this week, I'm not going to let you down. It is dun dun dun. Change order. Ladies and gentlemen, change order. Now, you may have heard that term. You may not have heard that term, but we're going to get into it and discuss it in this week's show. So let's get into it. All right. Welcome back, and let's go ahead and get rolling here. Now, I shared the term of the week. We're going to get into that. Recently, I talked about the 6 ever so important, vital, we say critical documents on a recent show. Those 6 critical documents fit into what I'm going to talk about today, which is the 7 stages of the rehab overview. Now, if you're not watching this show, you're listening. I got a lot of hand movements today. For some reason, I feel like moving my hands. If you're watching, you see that. If you're listening, I'll narrate for you. So today's show is on the 7 stages of the rehab overview system that we've been executing at CT Homes now for over 18 years, thousands of projects, and we've been teaching for well over a decade now, this same thing. So if you're fortunate enough to have invested in and been to one of the rehab boot camps that I've taught over the years, I talk about this, but for those of you that haven't, we're going to get into it. Now, there's a reason why we have systems, right? It helps give us a standard operating procedure. It helps manage and navigate better through problems. It gives you a course. It sets your boat at a destination, and you know where you're heading. It gives you a target. And so these 7 stages are what we execute every time we renovate a home. Now, We may only get to some of them, excuse me, if we don't buy the home, but they're the same, and we're going to talk about them one at a time. So I'll go over them, overview, then I'll dive into each one a little bit more. Number one, when we buy, fix, and sell a home, we're going to have an initial walkthrough. That's number one. Secondly, we're going to construct and create a scope of work. Thirdly, the third one is the process of contractor and job bidding. Then from that, we're going to get into stage 4 of the rehab overview, and that's contract signing. Now, the 6 critical documents that I discussed recently on an episode of the Fortune Builders Real Estate Investing podcast, I discussed those contracts, but that's stage 4. Number 5, ladies and gentlemen, is the actual rehab process, the X's and O's of demo and cabinetry install and changing the plumbing and landscaping, roof, windows, whatever else you're doing. But it's not number 1. It's not, I can't say that one's more important than the other because they all work together. They dovetail. For those of you that are watching, you see my really nice hand gesture. For those of you that are listening, I've interlocked my fingers like they're dovetailing. That's the rehab process, stage 5. Very important stage, but not the only stage. Then number 6, we have closing out the contracts. And we'll discuss what's included in that. And then last, but certainly not least, is the final touches. That is stage 7. Now, obviously, before you have anything to rehab, you've got to find a deal. Good thing is we have excellent training around that topic. And if you want to get registered for one of the classes around finding and funding your next deal, you can go to FortuneBuildersShow.com. That's FortuneBuildersShow.com and register for an upcoming free training with one of our top trainers around how to find more deals, how to fund them, how to get more deals in your pipeline. If you're watching this show now, you can click on the link below where you're watching to register for that show as well. Excellent training. Lots of great information there. And obviously you need to find deals before we can talk about rehabbing, which is the meat and potatoes, as they say, of the show we're going to talk about on the show, what we're going to talk about today. So that being said, let's talk about stage 1. That's the initial walkthrough. Now, this is the first time you've physically been into the home. Now, it isn't necessarily, and it shouldn't be, the first time you've seen the home from the standpoint of doing your desktop analysis, because the best way to waste your time is to not use and leverage technology. And so when we're looking at a deal, we can do a very thorough job, of a desktop analysis. When we started, they didn't have Google. It was called Google Earth when it first came out, where you could zoom in on a property and go to the neighborhood. I think it's just called Google View now. I actually forget what they call it, but it's where you can literally look at the aerial. You can, walk down the street, even depending on where the house is located. You can get a lot of information about the property before you're ever there by using Google. So do that. That's part of the desktop analysis. Pull comps. Look at numbers. If there's photos online, if it's listed, you can get a general understanding of how much it may be to do work or how much it needs. Now, that doesn't substitute walking into the home, but it arms you with more information and more knowledge about the property before you even leave your desk or your office to potentially waste time to go over there. Okay? But at some point, you're going to go to the home for the first time. That's the initial walkthrough. The things that are important in this stage are, and what you're doing, you're assessing the property. You're determining exactly how much it needs. You're estimating repairs. You're looking at it through the eyes of an investor thinking about buying it, but you're also looking at it through the lens and the eyes of what a homeowner may see. So you're tempering both of those things and determining what you're going to do. If you're meeting with the seller, you're building rapport. You're taking a lot of photos. If you're meeting with the agent, you're doing the same thing. You're building rapport, taking a lot of photos. You're determining layout changes. You're getting an understanding of what are the numbers of this deal. Now, either before or after that initial walkthrough, I personally like to do it after, you're going to drive comps. Now, that is kind of a subsection of the initial walkthrough. And the reason I like to drive comps comparables after is because now I have a sense of the property, what it is, what it isn't, what it needs, what it doesn't. And that can help further zero in on the value of the home when I drive the comps after. Now, there's definitely a discussion to drive the comps before. So if you're meeting with the seller, you can sign a contract and be up to speed on what the value is going to be. And I agree with that. But if that isn't the case and you're not meeting with the seller to potentially sign a contract, the property, it's vacant, or you're going with an agent, right? Then, and you're going to write an offer later, then I would drive comps after. So again, step one, initial walkthrough, you're taking all the desktop analysis information that you pulled before you left your computer, and you're taking the real information that you see at the property and determining repairs, layout changes, what it needs, what it doesn't, what you're going to spend, what you're not going to spend. You're also assessing the neighborhood as well. So that's part of it also. Now, again, the reason that these steps were created early on for our business is because we didn't have real estate experience when we started, but we needed to follow a protocol and a system that was going to help keep us structured and safe. And that's what this has done. And it served very well in our business, even now after over a decade, 18 plus years of experience now, almost 2 decades, and thousands of properties at CT Homes, and also for thousands of investors that we've helped teach and train the same system over the years. It served as well also. Now, after you go to the initial walkthrough, the next stage is the scope of work. Now, that's you taking the information that you determined from the property, either at your desktop analysis and also when you went to the property for the first time, and creating a comprehensive list of everything you're going to do. It's also one of the 6 critical documents that get signed if you do the project when you sign contracts with the contractor. But at this stage, number 2, with the scope of work, we're determining and writing down everything the home needs. Now, that's important because if you're going to get bids on the job before to refine your estimates of repairs, if you're going to ultimately execute the job because you bought the home, you need to have a document that says everything you want, the item numbers. I describe it as like the screenplay to a movie. That's what the scope of work is to a rehab. And it lists out the item numbers and SKUs and paint colors and layout changes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the term of the week is... Man, that sounds good. That just sounds really good. Change order. Now, change order is described or defined as any change or alteration to agreed upon work from an initial contract. I mean, that's a version of the definition. So something that work that you decide to do or that needs to get done that was outside the original scope of work that was agreed upon contractually and signed for. Now, that happens all the time in rehabs, in renovation, in residential redevelopment. The clearer you are in your scope of work, the more defined you are in that document, that you can reduce change orders and also have a system for how to handle them. So change order, again, as our term of the week, is a change or alteration in the agreed upon contractually signed work in this arrangement of renovations, is what we're talking about on this show, that has to get dealt with. It's either something that you decided to change that's going to take more time, more money, or has to get done because of something that gets discovered in the home. But how we handle that is important, and that's something that we spell out on an independent contractor agreement, which is one of the 6 critical documents. But the best way to handle change orders, since it is a term of the week, is to get it agreed upon in writing before the work gets done, negotiate the pricing, preferably. That's my suggestion to you in my experience. Sign it up in writing, add it to the contract. If there's any extension of time needed, make sure that that's noted as well. Everything gets agreed upon in black and white before the work gets done. Okay, that's important. All right, so that was the term of the week, which lent itself very well to stage 2 scope of work that we're talking about here. Number 3, stage 3 in the 7-stage rehab overview is the contractor and job bidding. This is where you take the information from your initial walkthrough, right? Everything builds on its own. You take the scope of work that you created, and now you have the job bid out, either because you want to confirm your estimate of repairs, or you actually know you're going to do the home or do the project and you need to get contractors to bid on it so that you can use that information to create contracts, get the work started. So you want to have like a minimum, preferably of 3 bids when you're getting work done, whether it's the overall scope or the electrical piece or plumbing, however you're bidding the job out. Now you're probably going to have to send more than 3 contractors by the home to get 3 bids, but it's good to have a detailed scope of work because that way they can bid apples to apples, know what you want and what you're going to expect of them, and then we can get them to bid on the job. All right, that's stage 3. Now, once we are in a situation where we know we're going to buy the home, then we're going to proceed to stage 4, which is contract signing. That's where, hey, we've either already owned the home or we know we're going to buy it and we've already bid the job out. Of course, we've already created our scope of work and been to the home initially in stage 1. And now we're going to lock in contractors or a contractor to do the work. And as a refresher from a previous show recently I did on the 6 critical documents within the 7-stage rehab overview, is number 1 of the 6 is the independent contractor agreement. Number 2 of the 6 is the scope of work that I discussed a moment ago. Number 3 is the payment schedule. Number 4 is the insurance indemnification hold harmless agreement. Numero 5, number 5 is the W-9 tax document. And then the 6th critical document that would get signed in stage 4 of the 7 we're talking about on this show in contract signing is the lien waiver. Okay? So stage 1, initial walkthrough. Stage 2, scope of work. 3, contractor and job bidding. 4, contract signing. I haven't talked yet about the actual rehab process, but do not fret, ladies and gentlemen, listening around the world, boys and girls, because that's next. But notice that there's 4 things, very important things we do before we work on the rehab. One of the best ways I know to have a rehab go sideways or not have the outcome you want or have more problems than you need to have, and you can ask me how I know this, is to not be clear, detailed, and follow a system that I just went through of the first 4 stages before you do work. Because if you've already been if the home's already been started on, but you haven't signed contracts or verified insurance or created your scope of work, then what are they rehabbing? How do you know that you're getting what you want and that they're not doing things they shouldn't do or doing the things that you need them to do? So the next stage, which usually is the longest stage of the process, is the actual rehab, the demo, the framing, the rough plumbing, new electrical, flooring, drywall, insulation, roofing, windows, whatever the home needs, cabinets, whatever the scope of work was, right? That actual work. Now, again, it's usually the longest stage of the 7 for sure, because that's where the work's going down. That's where the magic is happening, as they say. And that's going to be the longest stage, stage 5. It doesn't need to be the most problematic or difficult or challenging or frustrating. It can be more fun if you follow a system like we're talking about here and execute things before you actually do the rehab. Now, ideally, when you're buying a home, you're doing a lot of things. You're running numbers, you're working with closing agents, attorneys, escrow, title, you're raising funds, you're doing paperwork, you're doing a lot of things. Ideally, when you're going to buy, fix, and sell a property, you would want to get through the first 4 stages that we're talking about in this show before you own the home. Because if that's the case, then if you've done all that work, you can actually start the rehab as soon as you own the home. Activate insurance the day you close on the property, and then you already have done the contract signing and the job bidding and the scope of work and initial walkthrough, of course. So then now you can hit the ground running really fast, like thoroughbred fast to the rehab if you've done those first 4 stages. If that isn't the case, you couldn't access the property again, you were slower to get some of these things done, whatever it is, it happens, then you want to get through those first 4 stages as soon as you can after you close on the property. That is the goal. So that's stage 5, the rehab process. Now, when that gets done, property's completed or very close to completed, we move to stage 6, which is the contract closeout. Now, contract closeout is what it says in terms of, bookending the contracts, but there's also some other important key ingredients, okay? And those ingredients are you, as an investor, have to go through the home and do something called a punch list, create a punch list. That is a list of things that either got missed in the scope of work, need to get fine-tuned or cleaned up better because they're not up to the caliber you need them to be, and all those hopefully little things that need to get done by someone, the contractor, before the house is ready, finished, and up to the standards that it needs to be. So you and I as the investors create that punch list. Contractor completes that punch list, and then in that exchange, once the punch list is done, this is part of this contract closeout, they sign the final lien waiver, we issue the final check to them, and also in this discussion, we want to get any final inspections and permits that were needed for the job, depending on your area, your scope of work, what was needed in terms of city involvement. Okay, so very important in this stage 6 contract closeout. It's not just contractor says they're done, you check that box and we move on. You verify, you create a punch list, you make sure that punch list gets done, you have them sign a final lien waiver, and then they get a final payment, whether it's one contractor or multiple. And then before you issue the final payment, you want to get a copy or the original of any inspection reports, final permit sign off that was needed from the city, county, or building department. Okay. Very important stage, as I've probably said in all of these stages, because they're all important. And then once that's done in stage 6, boom, final stage, which is stage 7, and it's final touches. Now, there's a lot of things that happen here that I'll talk about that are equally as important for the home to showcase in its best light. So final touches usually revolves around, right, home's done. You already had your final inspection from the city, if that's what was needed. Punch list done. The home's, done, but it's not perfect yet. Okay. Final touches, stage 7, is professional cleaning, like white glove style cleaning here. You want to be able to eat off the floor, right? You get the idea. Then we stage the home, and we stage at CT Homes all of our properties because, an empty renovated home isn't the same thing as a staged property. When you renovate a home, it's super clean, it's empty because no staging or no furniture is in it. It's just a nice looking renovated, right, house. But staging makes a house a home. It creates warmth, it creates emotion. It pulls people in the photos. It gives them a place to sit when they go to look at the property. They can imagine themselves living in the home as opposed to this open space that's nice and clean and renovated, but staging makes a house a home. So I would suggest you do that on your next project if you haven't been. And then at the same time, after it's staged, we want to get professional photos, high quality, high resolution, professional photos that are done with quality equipment, a quality person, wide angle lens. They can adjust the lighting, make it nice and crisp, right? Really showcase the property in its best light. Now, back in the day, photos were all we needed. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not back in the day anymore. This isn't the era of Love Boat where you met Captain Steubing on the ship and then you went down to the bar and got a drink from Isaac. Some of you are listening to this and saying, holy shit, JD, how old are you, dude? You look like you watched The Love Boat? Yeah, I watched The Love Boat because Chara, if you remember, Charo, I forget her name exactly. But what I do remember is Chara would cha-cha-cha, and it was my first, as a young boy, when she would, perform on the show. And she was, if you don't know what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen, look up Chara. You'll then know what I'm talking about. But I have no idea how we got to Love Boat and Chara from what we were talking about. Let me see if I can rewind that. Oh, we don't live back in the day. We live now. And so photos aren't enough. We need to have a quality video. Now, that could be drone, and probably should be if you have something interesting to showcase from an aerial. But also, it's a comprehensive, like, virtual tour of the property, which is almost the norm now. So if you're only doing photos, professional, high resolution, high quality photos of your property, I mean, that's better than you using your iPhone, although the iPhone camera is certainly pretty nice now, but it's not enough. And so a virtual 3D rendering of the home where a person can click on a link and literally be inside the property and walk around is also what you need now. That just really makes it something that a person that doesn't live in the area or wants to be in the home or feel like they've been in the home before they've actually been there can use. And so that's important. I wouldn't skip that step. Again, final touches, right? Getting the place super clean, white glove cleaning, those staging, because staging makes a house a home, and then capturing the home in its best light with high-res photos, and additionally some version of a 3D rendering of the home that can substitute as someone walking into the home digitally or virtually, and then aerials, right? Those drone photos, even if you're not near water or some, really cool thing to look at around the home, you can still do an aerial of the property and then pinpoint around the property neat things that are around there, restaurants or a park or something like that. And now someone gets more knowledge and more information about the home before they've been there. And I know that's important, because the more familiar someone feels about the home before they get there or when they get there, the more connection they're going to have with that property. And if they feel like they've been in the home before they've been there or as they get there, then they might be in that home very soon because they bought it from you and you've sold it to them. All right. So that's stage 7. Let's summarize again those 7 important stages of the rehab system and overview. Number 1, as we've talked about here on the show, was the initial walkthrough. Number 2, was the scope of work creation. Number 3 is the contractor and job bidding stage. Number 4 is the contract signing. And in this stage, we've got 6, that's 5. We've got 6 critical documents: independent contractor agreement, scope of work, payment schedule, insurance, paperwork, W-9, lien waiver. Stage 4, contract signing. Number 5 is the rehab process. Again, probably the longest stage of the 7 that we're talking about. Number 6 is that contract closeout, punch list, completion of punch list, final lien waiver check, final inspections. And then last but not least is getting a drink from Isaac at the Love Boat, on the Love Boat in stage 7. No, but I did talk about it in stage 7. Stage 7 is final touches, and that's where we get the house clean, professionally staged, photographs, high res, some sort of 3D rendering capture of the property inside and out, because that technology exists now, and we showcase the home in its best light. Whew, that was a mouthful. Now all I can think about is meeting Captain Stubing on the Love Boat for some reason. Then there was a show that you might remember, some of you that are in my demographic or older, a show called Flipper. Now, Flipper has nothing to do with real estate, but it was a show about a dolphin and his boyhood friend. And they went around town and they fought crime. It was a real show. It wasn't a cartoon. It was a dolphin in the water that talked to the boy. And if I remember right, somehow they cleaned up crime around the city or something like that. It was very odd, but I remember it. So some decent marketing with the show Flipper. Some of my younger demographic listening are like, Flip, there was a show about a dolphin? Dude, are you high, JD? No, I'm not high. That was a real show. All right. Remember, the term of the week was change order. That's an alteration or, addition or subtraction or any sort of adjustment to agreed upon scope of work that was signed contractually. And we talked about how to deal with that effectively. That's the term of the week. Reminder for those of you that are more hungry or hungrier for more training around funding your deals. I talked about the way for you to register for that, FortuneBuildersShow.com. For those of you that are listening, watching, you can click the link to get more information and register for one of our excellent classes from one of our top trainers around finding and funding deals. And then last but not least, like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff around the podcast. We really enjoy delivering information in this fashion, and the more feedback we get, the more you share, the more you like, the more you help others subscribe, the more we can, spread that message and share information. So thanks for joining us today, as always. Super excited about upcoming shows, and you better believe you're gonna see JD on a future show. So take care, everyone.